Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Munir Lazouzi from easymedicaldevice.com. And today we will talk about laboratory tests. So mainly I am involved on a lot of projects, on design and development projects. And we arrive at a certain stage where we need to go to a laboratory to make some tests like biocompatibility tests or material tests or animal studies, etc., etc. So there is a point where I also learned on the fact that you should not just go to a laboratory and just say, do the test. You have maybe to prepare something before. And for helping us to accelerate, if I can say, your testing within laboratories. So I have with me Christoph Lindner, which is the team leader medical device testing at TÜV SÜD. So Christoph, welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Hi, Munir. Thanks for inviting me to your podcast.
Great. So Christoph, we had long discussions about how to do tests, how to come, how this and that. And I said, maybe it's good to share that, if I can say, with the audience, because the objective will be how can we help them to accelerate or not delay their progress in terms of getting a test available on, their products available on the market. But before I'm asking you my question, so can we have a small introduction of yourself and maybe the activities you are doing, and then we can go directly on the topic.
Yeah, for sure. So like you introduced myself already, so I'm Christoph Lindner, working with TÜV SÜD as a team leader for medical device testing. And by education, I'm a chemist, but now have the key focus points in chemical testing, biological testing, biocom testing, and some parts of packaging and transport validation testing for medical devices.
Great. So I think this will be also interesting. So you are not part, you are part of TÜV SÜD, but not part of the notified body, I suppose. You are part of another entity.
So indeed, it's the same entity, but we are completely separated. So we are not sharing the notified body reports with the test house and way around. So we are sure, or we are making sure that there's an impartiality between both parts. Yes,
exactly. So just also maybe a disclosure before. So all what we are saying today is general, common, if I can say normally to a lot of companies, but it's not a guarantee that you will be succeeding just because you are following all that. So, but I wanted to say that, for Christoph also, that we are having our own opinions on these things, but we are not here providing you the secret sauce, if I can say, for things. We are just trying to provide you the guidance and best practices to have a discussion with laboratory or to get the advice from them. Okay, so mainly the first thing that I wanted to ask you, Christoph. So we are talking here now about laboratories, so having the test done in laboratories. But when you are working for maybe some big companies, they already have their own facility, they already have their own team, their own thing. So is it mandatory to go to an external lab, if I can say, that is accredited and everything, or can we use an internal lab that we have within our facility to develop and some testing to get some result and then to get those documents or reports approved by a notified body like another one?
So indeed, it's possible to do tests internally, but I would like to give you 3 steps and where most of the medical device manufacturers would be. So the one step would be something like you are a small medical device manufacturer and there's no need and no sense to build up your own laboratory, doing all the validation stuff, showing your competence and so on. On the other side, it would be that you have a large medical device manufacturer. So there are indeed some manufacturers who have their own entity, their laboratory entity with an ISO IEC 17025 accreditation. So they're completely separated. It's something like a completely new company. And so it's quite easy to show impartiality, but many manufacturers will be in the middle. So they have to show their competency, their impartiality when they are performing their own tests or test reports for providing to regulatory authorities like notified bodies. And so this is the critical point. It might be that it's more time consuming and more money consuming than going to an external laboratory. Especially when you're going to in vivo test, there's no way that a mid-sized manufacturer will go this way, Munir.
Yeah, so I think what is interesting here is to say the rules that an external laboratory is following are the same that for a company that is creating their own laboratory. So they have still to have this ISO 17025. They still have to follow the same rules, etc. And what is interesting, and I like that, and I was not thinking about it, is the impartiality, is to say, okay, it's your laboratory, but how can you be judged and make a result and say, I am good, if I can say, I am creating the products and I'm judging that product that I'm creating, which says, yes, I'm good at creating my product. So it's also something that is really important. But are notified bodies or regulators looking at this impartiality and saying, oh, it was done in total impartiality?
So this answer no one likes. It depends.
Okay.
So I think every assessor has a different point of view on this. I would like to emphasize that it's not necessarily that you have an ISO 17 or 25 accreditation when you're able to show your competency. So that you have an established method, you have the validation, and you can show that you're good. In earlier times, laboratories were quite rare on some specific tests, for example, knee implants or hip implants, when you have a stress test for you're simulating 20 years of using this. So in this case, larger manufacturers did have their own laboratories, but now there are also laboratories available on the European market covering some kind of test like this.
No, I think it's great. And I remember exactly, I was working a lot on orthopedics, and I was working for big companies, and I saw those laboratories inside our plant where they are doing those testing to verify a 1 million cycle that everything is not
broken. Or bending.
Exactly, those kind of things. So I saw that, yes, and it was internal, and yet true. It's the objective is also to show that all the systems are validated, the same as what you are doing on manufacturing. When you are manufacturing a product, you are using some equipment, and you have to show the validation of those equipment. So it's the same here for the testing, which is good. So also the other thing is money. You have, if you build your own laboratories, you have to maintain it, and you have to kind of have to pay all those things. So if it's for a one-time project, I think it's not worth it at all to go for building a laboratory and doing that for just a one-time project.
Yeah, I fully agree on this one here. So you have to have several projects per year, and also not having for small size companies something like 20 different kind of medical devices. There, the amount of different tests will just be overwhelming.
Exactly. The other thing that we are experiencing when we are going through laboratories is to say, okay, we have now finalize maybe our prototype or our products or whatever, and we want to make the test through laboratories. For example, let's say biocompatibility test or biological evaluation test, and we send that to laboratories and say, oh, it will take maybe 2 to 3 months to get that, the results, everything, etc. And we say, and the answer that the management is always asking, can we reduce that? Can we reduce this timeline? Can we make it shorter? Should we pay more to get it maybe shorter so that they can run 2-3 machines? Or I don't know what to do. So do you have first this experience of people trying to really reduce those timelines? And can you reduce those timelines, or it's not really possible?
So for sure, we have some medical device manufacturers who have some kind of pressure. This is internally the pressure. We don't know what is happening internally, but we see this. So some kind of manufacturers are asking about expedite services. And in some cases, it is possible, but sometimes the setup when you're going for sensitization, so it will never be faster than something like, I guess, 6 to 8 weeks. Just due to the nature of the test that you're doing a first step, then a second, a third step on animals, so usually on rabbits. And so it won't be successful. You cannot reduce this to 2 weeks. It's simply not possible due to the nature of the test.
So I think here there is also some kind of management of project with parallel action that should be also managed, because the thing is, there are some people that says, oh, if I do the test and I wait for 3 months, what should I do during the next 3 months? Because I'm waiting for that to do my next activity. So here I think there is some kind of project management, but are you, if I can say, helping in terms of that to say, oh, while we are doing this test, we can also do maybe another test, or we can do something else. So can we do parallel testing, or should we really wait for one to be finished before to do others?
Do you want to have the realistic answer or the answer from the standard?
Always the realistic answer.
So the standard always say, do first, if it's necessary, the chemical test, then the in vitro test, so no animals involved, and then the in vivo test.
Yeah.
But this will expanding your period by month and month. And so you can do for sure things in parallel as long as you're taking the standard not too serious and you're not aware of any adverse effects already noticed by a medical device. Otherwise, it would be against animal welfare. And so when you're not aware of anything and you're not expecting any problems or adverse effects, you can do in parallel. And then the final reports will drop in step by step by step.
Now, I think it's good because it's true that, yeah, if you know already that there is some kind of toxicity and then you are giving this to an animal that will die anyway because of that, but it makes no sense. You if I can say, you have made that for nothing, which is really important. So I suppose you have to build those justification before you can make those kind of testing there.
Yeah, in this case, you as a manufacturer can decide on this. Sometimes it's happening that you're not testing in the same laboratories. So the one laboratory is not aware of what you're doing for second laboratory. It can be some laboratories do have the full scope. Others are have their focus on the chemical tests or on the in vivo tests and so on. So you have some kind of freedom, but just keep in mind, don't do anything against animal welfare when you're aware of adverse effects, toxic behavior, and so on.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's why we are trying to give those advices here to say, try to manage it through projects really well so that you are not trying to make some mistakes or accelerate or try to make some tests that maybe will not be necessary at all. So this is maybe something that is good introduction to what I wanted to mainly ask is what are so I am a manufacturer, I'm coming to you. What should I maybe prepare before? What should I maybe give you when I'm coming to you? What should I maybe do during the time you are doing the test, etc.? What should I do after? So is there some kind of do and don'ts, activities that we can share here to say, do this and don't do that?
Yeah. So it depends on your state of knowledge. So when you do have an own toxicologist who is available and is able to do an BEP, so a biological evaluation plan, it's always great. So in this biological evaluation plan, you have your device you're describing. I had in earlier times some similar devices. I have clinical data. I have preclinical data. I know about my material, and I'm going usually to the ISO 10993-1 and checking especially at table A1 what is necessary. So there are some kind of X indicated and a lot of E's. And so sometimes, so the E means it's necessary that you consider those endpoints, but it's not mandatory to test those endpoints. So you have some kind of freedom. Unfortunately, the assessor of your notified body has also some kind of freedom to disagree with you.
Okay.
So, but it's good. You can say, okay, I want to do those tests and those tests. But when you're not at this stage, try to get in contact with your laboratory. They will usually give you technical advice. They are not allowed to give you consultancy. So when you're asking them how to do those tests or these tests, this is fine. But you cannot expect from a laboratory, please give me the magic key. And with this key, when I'm following this route, everything will be great in Europe, at the FDA, in Chinese FDA and Japan. So for this, you should go to a consultant. Usually he or she is able to give you more guidance, even or directly giving you consultancy, but the laboratory is not allowed to do so.
I think it's important here also to say that because it's not because, I mean, they are not, I suppose for me, they are not giving you advice or consultancy because they don't know. It's because they know, but they don't. I suppose there is also some kind of liability here in case of giving you this advice. And if they fail, if you fail or something, who is responsible for this failure? Maybe the parameters were not correctly performed or correctly provided. And then we say, oh, it's you who defined those parameters. I didn't define that. And now I have maybe to redo the test with new parameters, etc. So I suppose there is also this kind of thing. Is it correct or?
Yes, but I have to give some additional information. As a notified body is not allowed to do consultancy, according to ISO 17 or 25, accredited laboratories also not allowed to do consultancy. It's not only for liability, but also what is allowed when you're having an audit as an accredited laboratory, and there are some indications that you're doing in the consultancies. It's not your best day of your life.
Okay, great. I understand now, because it's true that, I mean, at the beginning of my career, we started to go to laboratories and say, oh, do this test per the ISO, blah, blah. And they are asking us a lot of questions. Should we do it on that way, this cycle, this thing, that thing, etc.? And we're here like, I have no clue. We don't know what we, I mean, you know better than me. So I want, as you've said, I just want to be compliant to go to Europe, to FDA, to whatever, then do whatever you need to get to this point. Mainly, this is mainly the thing. But after many years, we understand that, we have to make our own, as I said, protocols, things, and define our own rules. And recently, I had also a test with another laboratory, and we had a meeting just because they had a lot of questions. How should we do this? How should we do that, etc. And we had to answer this question before they can start the test. So it's something that is really important, that you have also some people within your teams that have some knowledge, or having some consultants that have some knowledge that can help you to make the right decisions. But so I suppose a lot of people are, if I can say, coming to you with this imagination that you are here to do everything and they have to do nothing, if I can say.
It's fully true what you're supposing, but here, like I mentioned before, you have to make the difference between what is on the technical side. We can say you need this and that, and it's not good to do 37 degrees instead of 50 degrees for FDA. But we cannot say, okay, with your clinical data, you can do a rationale or justification why you're omitting, so why you're not doing some kind of test. So this is not possible for a laboratory.
Okay. Is there, so sometimes we have some tests, everything goes well, and we get the report, and then we are happy. Sometimes it doesn't go so well. We have some negative results or things that are not working. So is there some negotiation with you to say, oh, can we let it pass like this, or can we do that? So is there some kind of flexibility here? It's like, no, it's not pass, it's not pass. We don't, there is no other choice here.
So a laboratory will always state the result. Okay. And in some cases, there are pass-fail criteria. In some tests, they are not. So there, you're more flexible to do some rationale justification. But when you have done, for example, an irritation test on guinea pigs, and there all the guinea pigs gets irritant skin, so irritation is obvious. There's no way for repeating the test. So this, especially for in vivo tests, so in vitro tests is a little bit different, but for in vivo tests, the standard says no repetition without any modification, or that you're doing any enhancement, not testing into compliance. So this no laboratory will like this, and it's also not the sense or in the sense of a manufacturer.
No, I think it's great, this, because I was thinking of that. I was saying, oh, maybe it didn't pass well the first time because, I don't know, we think maybe there was some false positive or whatever. Can we redo the test? But here, apparently, as you said, in vitro, it's possible, but in vivo, it's not really possible because, as you said, we have some animals here. So we not really torture again some animals when at the end there is no change of your thing. But in vitro, is it recommended when we have some failure here to say, can we redo it just to be sure?
I would not say it's a recommendation, but I would ask my own process, the manufacturing process, do I have a large variance?
Okay.
But then, for example, in the chemical test, there's clearly indicated in a 1093-18, when you do have a large variance, not doing the test once, but doing this as a triplicate.
Okay.
Because then you see, okay, I have here some variance. For sure, it would be better that you're getting rid of your variance within your production process, because then also in the future, it might be even when you're passing the test, that we have some adverse effects. So I cannot give a general recommendation, but just go to your production process, see what can be the influence. Why did I not expect that there's some kind of toxicity? Did I neglect some kind of additives, cleaning agents, the packaging, after my ethylene oxide sterilization, maybe the degassing cycle is too short. So not just blindly go into a repetition of a test. So this I cannot recommend.
Okay, no, I think it's a good one. And so do you have maybe some other advice in terms of how we can avoid to slow down some testing process, how we can be more effective, I can say? Do you have maybe some anecdotes or things that can you always see, like the top 3 or top 5 things that you always see and say, oh, all people are always doing these mistakes?
So usually not always doing this, luckily, but I would like to share my top 3, how you can efficiently slow down your testing process. So it would be something like you having a discussion with the laboratory and stating, for example, you want this kind of conditions. And in the end, the laboratory, you're doing the order. The laboratory is sending you, sometimes it's called sample submission form, where you're writing, what's my company name, what's the item name, what's the batch number. And then you're including different kind of informations on the technical issue. Then there's a conflict. And to get rid of the conflict, it's taking days to usually weeks. So this is slowing down for sure. Okay. Closely connected, when you're sharing with the laboratory a biological evaluation plan, and in the end you're ordering something or you want get tests done which are not according to the biological evaluation plan, then there's also so much confusion, and so it's not good.
So it means that they send you a biological evaluation plan. It says do this, do that on this format for this product with this scope, with that thing, etc., etc. And when you open the box and look, it's not that at all. It's not it's not linked at all. Is it that, or?
Yeah. So sometimes the test item is differently.
Okay.
Sometimes the kind of tests are differently.
Okay.
And so then you as the laboratory. So
what should I do?
Exactly.
I mean, at the end, I think you cannot do anything. You have to, as we said, it can slow down, if I can say, your process, because you have maybe to replace the part or to change the biological evaluation plan, or to solve this with the customer, which can take also some time for them. And I suppose they are not happy when it takes a bit of time there.
Sure. So maybe I can jump to a second point.
Yeah.
When you are not providing all the information which are necessary, I can give some kind of examples. So when you're doing, for example, a cytotoxicity test, there are different dyes, so different methods, so MTT, MTS, XTT, and you're simply, when you have this form, there you will get asked, what do you want?
Yeah.
And usually when the customers, sorry to say so, have not so in-depth knowledge, they are just leaving this blank, but it's never helping, because the laboratory is always coming back to you. And so in case it's not the only example, when you have little knowledge, sometimes just 1 or 2 hours conversation with a consultant could help you.
Yeah,
on
because
very basic. Yeah.
I think it's important also to mention that sometimes it's true that when you see those forms, there is those acronyms that we never heard, so we have no clue what we are talking about, and this can be also, I think, a bit like frightening. I mean, at one point you say, should I tick whatever? I just say XTT or MTT or whatever because I have no clue. Or as you said, should I hire a consultant to do that? Or can the laboratory just tell me what it is and then maybe I can guess myself what I should write there?
Yeah, in some cases, the laboratory can help you, especially because this kind of forms, every testing client is bothered with, are not specific for the one product for this except product within the whole range of medical devices. But there are some questions. Is there an antimicrobial coating?
Okay.
Probably this is not relevant when you're testing a disinfectant.
Okay.
So there can't be a coating. So don't be confused. For those easy cases, I think you can ask the laboratory. But when it's going to, is there a difference between Japanese authority and FDA? then probably it's not it's more going to the consultancy area, and it's not on the range or on the side of the laboratory.
Great. Okay. We guess that now everybody understood that. Yeah, if you need really some technical in terms of regulation advices per country, etc., better to go to a consultant to help you on that. Do you have something else?
So a third thing is especially when you have larger studies, not something like an easy study, something like something like accelerated aging. It's getting more and more important, I think, or some transport validation, all the in vivo studies. When you're telling the laboratory, I will send my shipment in week number 4, calendar week number 4, but then on short notice, you give the information, I won't do this. Probably it's a delay of 1 or 2 months, and then the laboratory has to completely reschedule everything. And usually then the delay is not 1 or 2 months, but will be something like in a week from 2 to 4 months, because usually you have to order the animals or having your climatic chambers. Sometimes there are climatic chambers of 8 times 10 times 5 meters. They're not always available, and this is really delaying your projects.
So I suppose we have, your calendar is booked long time in advance, so you have also other customers that are there waiting for their thing. So it's not like because one canceled, if I can say, one test and they want to move it for the following month, it's possible because you already have booked, if I can say, all those materials for other customers. So I think it's also an important thing to say, yeah, if you cancel, don't expect to get an immediate date after, unless you are really lucky. But as you've said, you have maybe some ordering to do, some material that will not be available, etc., which is something that is really important. But the advice, an advice is really, if you have long studies or big studies like that, to really talk to you so you can really schedule everything, because if you don't schedule, you can maybe not provide the things on time then.
Exactly. The larger the study is, the more it is like talk to your laboratory. When will it be available? Are the laboratory personnel, or is the laboratory personnel also available? And they don't just on short notice give the information, sorry, I did not make it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point here. Okay. So one thing that we wanted also to discuss is one element which is called design freeze. So this is something that is, I think, important. So during, when we are doing a development, we have some prototypes and we are testing that, etc. And at a certain point, we want to go through the laboratories. So do you recommend to go to the laboratories when we know that your design is not completely frozen, if I can say, or it's better to wait until everything is fixed and it will not change at all, then you can go to laboratory? So just also to reduce time. So is it recommended to do some tests before even design freeze?
So first of all, I would like to answer on your question and afterwards give you a nice story which really happened.
Okay.
So for sure, the standard says, whenever possible, try to do the test on the final medical device in the exact same geometry, the material you want to use later on, the way you do the sterilization in case it's a sterile medical device, and the final packaging. Okay. Whenever you're changing later on, some assessors might ask, okay, so now you're showing me some kind of tests for this kind of medical device, but afterwards you changed something. So obviously you had not your design freeze yet. So what's the influence? And it's quite complicated. And so I had once a customer, and we were not yet at the testing stage, but on the evaluation stage, so biological evaluation plan, so the BEP. And after the first round of evaluation, we want to use a second material.
Okay.
So we did a second loop. We want to use a different geometry.
Okay.
Then we had a third loop. Then we want to change the clinical or the use, so the clinical usage, and it will delay the project by weeks and months. So it's whenever possible, try to get your product final, that you have a design freeze. Otherwise, you will run into trouble.
Yeah, but because I mean, it's obvious also, as you've said, an assessor, even me, if I'm auditing a company, I will see that there was a test done in January, but in April there was a big design change. Then you show me the test that was done in April, in January. Then I will ask you, do you have a justification that this test was not impacted by the design change? Are you sure that everything was followed, etc.? So I mean, it's obvious for that. So are you, when you start to see cycle 1, cycle 2, or cycle 3, etc., are you saying to the customer, are you sure it's the final design, or they know about that and they take the risk? Because also, I was on this side of the business. We have manufacturers and management that accept to take the risk because they want to reduce the timeline as low as possible. And they say, okay, we know we are not sure that we are design freeze, but we accept to take the risk to make the test now. And if we have a change later, we accept to redo the test. But it's just to reduce, to say that we know about this risk.
So usually all the test laboratories will ask, is this the final medical device? But for sure, you cannot check on this. When the client is telling you it's the final medical device, they want to go the risk. It's their decision for sure. For in vivo testing, it's absolutely not recommended to do something with in vivo tests without the design freeze. But for sure, you could order this or get laboratories do this for you. But as a manufacturer, like you mentioned or like you explained, there is a high risk. And anytime you're doing a justification, the assessor has the possibility to disagree.
Just one thing, maybe, because we talked a lot about animals and the fact that we are testing on animals, and that maybe there is some, I mean, the fact of treating badly the animals because we are redoing tests and tests when we know it's not working. So in that case, for example, just maybe to have an understanding for you as laboratory. So is there a committee that says, yes, we do this test, or no, we don't do this test, when you receive the information to say, yeah, we accept to do this test or not? Or it's like, no, we accept everything and we are not arguing anything on that?
So it's not a full committee. It's not like an ethical committee when you're doing clinical studies, but there's always the check, is this a medical device at all? So, for example, we had some inquiries for PPE, so personal protective equipment. And so there's no indication that you're doing animal tests on PPE.
Yeah.
So then we rejected this and we're looking for an in vitro test.
Okay, so I think it's important here that it's not just a start and do the activities. It's really that you are asking yourself some questions first before you go through that. So have you had to reject some medical devices to say you have done 10 times the same test and we are not accepting anymore to do it?
So luckily, just for the PPEs, so with the COVID-19, there were many manufacturers or just importers who has little to, no knowledge. And so they're just importing anything from Asian markets and wanted to have the one and single test to place then everything on Amazon or even in larger business ways. And so there we were not able to help. We did some technical discussions, and in the end we said sorry, we are not able to help.
Okay, I think it's important also to mention that you are not just here as a business, just getting some, if I can say, test to be done, and you are just open boutique and this and that. You are really making this like a thorough process, and that people are really have to understand that what you are doing is really important. It's not. It's you have really some people that are really helping and deciding if we go or not for this kind of elements. You are from, as we said, from TÜV SÜD, so we know that there is a notified body at TÜV SÜD also that is reviewing something. So is there some kind of thing to say, oh, I am from your test laboratory, it was done by TÜV SÜD. So if your notified body is TÜV SÜD, they will accept it more to say, oh, you have done test at TÜV SÜD laboratory, so it's fine. Oh, I know Christoph Lindner, so it's completely fine. I know this is a good guy, so it's fine. Your test is fine. I will not argue anything on this, etc. So is there some kind of thinking like that?
So I would be so glad if it's like they are seeing my name as contact person and they are just waving, everything good. But indeed, it's not. Like just in the beginning of this podcast, we said we are always trying and maintain the impartiality, and so our test reports are I would not say not better than others, not more valuable than others. For sure, when a test house is knowledgeable and knows how notified bodies are working, it's always of good help. So not only TÜV SÜD has this knowledge, for sure, I have to put this in disclaimer, but for sure, not based on a direct report or on customer, we have some interchange or exchange. We are saying, okay, what is good or what should we not do in the testing business, that we are trying to avoid this. For sure, we are not able to do this in 100% of all cases, and we are not the perfect guys in testing, but we are always trying to improve.
I think it's great. And I'm asking specifically this question because I have customers that are asking me, oh, my notified body is this one or this one. Can I go to the laboratory that is with this notified body? Maybe they will accept better my test, etc. So the answer is no. Any laboratories will be reviewed as a laboratory, and if they have followed the same rules, if they're accredited, etc., so they will be checked. So there is no issue on that. Now,
but may I mention something else? Yeah. Some customers are even complaining that the notified body and the test laboratory are the same legal entity. They are afraid we are saying, hey, this test report, it fails.
Yeah. So the fact that to say don't take those. I mean, I suppose there is no reporting to say, oh, this customer fails, so you should not accept them as customers.
Never in life, never.
Okay, great. Good to inform people, because maybe they are afraid of that. I mean, I like that because it's maybe a question that people are asking themselves and they would never ask or we never tell. But I think it's good here to have a good information about it. And the last thing that I wanted to ask is mainly about you are a laboratory, so we should include you on our supplier list. So to say that you are approved supplier for us. So is it common to also audit the laboratories? So to say, oh, you are my laboratories, you are on my supplier list, you are doing a lot of tests for me, which are critical. Should I come to audit you? So is this something that happens to, for example, TÜV SÜD, that they get audited by customers?
So I don't want just to answer for TÜV SÜD, but I think for all the laboratories. So the manufacturers should always put a test laboratory to the supplier list. Then checking, is it just a supplier or a critical supplier? From my perspective, I'm also an auditor for MDD, MDR, and ISO 13485. So the critical supplier would be, is there an influence on the safety and performance of my medical device? So this is directly going to Annex 1, GSPR, general safety and performance requirements of the MDR. Is there influence or no? And when the answer is yes, it would be a critical supplier. And then you have to set up some kind of requirements. What do I need from my critical supplier? It might be that a questionnaire, so the supplier self-questionnaire, is sufficient when there's an accreditation or even a GLP certification, and performance within the last year was in some kind of rules you can define by your own, was good to very good, and that there's no need of an audit. Okay. But we had some suppliers who, especially when they are thinking about not only placing 1 or 2 orders by 1,000 euros per year, who did an audit. But you have to check, it's a large effort on both sides. So when you want to go into a deeper relationship with the laboratory, it might be helpful that you're getting to know each other better. But just for rarely performed tests, probably the laboratory is not happy, but also your auditors doing the audit are not happy when they are requesting to do so.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. But as you said, you have a procedure that you should have within your quality management system, which will define how you are managing your suppliers. If it's a critical, yes, do something. If it's not really critical, if it's, as you say, if you are doing just 1 order per year and it's not really a critical process, then maybe there is no need for doing that. But all this should be defined by the manufacturers on their procedures directly. Okay, sure. So I think we covered really all the topics that I wanted to discuss. But as we talk about TÜV SÜD, so we talk about many things that you are doing. So do you have, maybe can you mention what are the services, or for what test should I come to TÜV SÜD? So what test you can provide, what test you can do for the manufacturer, so that maybe they can relate and say, oh yes, I have this test to do, so maybe I will contact you directly.
So the quick answer would be all.
Okay.
And to make it more precisely, so like I mentioned in the introduction, so I'm dealing with everything with biocom, biological, chemical tests, but we have also colleagues, some kind of test modules, so electrical safety, electromagnetic compatibility. So these things, we have different departments, because there I'm definitely not the expert, up to fancier things like MRI safety and cybersecurity. So it might be that we can provide a one-pager together with this podcast, who's interested in and to see what we are able to offer.
Yeah, so send that to me and I will put that on the show notes and people will directly download that. And where people can follow up with you, so is there a specific place where people can discuss with you or maybe ask you a question directly?
Yeah, sure. I'm always happy for some questions, and I'm active on LinkedIn. And also, it might be useful just in case you want to connect, get in touch with me on LinkedIn. And I also published, I think, a few weeks ago and a few months ago, some article series on some relative topics. Okay. They are free of charge in LinkedIn. You just have to get in touch with me and check what kind of articles did he write, and just read. Maybe it's helpful. I try to make it as entertaining like this podcast.
No problem. So great. So I will put all the information on the show notes. So don't hesitate to go on the show notes and get the details there. So really, thank you, Christoph. It was really, for me, it was really a good podcast. I really like all the information you provided, and I really hope that all this will help manufacturers to be faster on the market, to not make mistake, and to arrive also to you. And I hope it will benefit also to you, that they arrive and say, oh, I listened to the podcast and I know exactly what information I should provide to you, so that we are getting faster on the market, which is great. So Christoph, really thank you for your support. Thank you for all the information you provided, and I wish you really a nice day.
Thanks you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.